This is Health Yeah, your weekly update on what's going on in the health, wellness, and medical world with Monica Robbins.
As parents prepare their students for school by buying school supplies, clothes, and other essentials, experts say don't overlook those wellness appointments, and that begins with vaccinations. But more and more parents are deciding against vaccinating their kids.
If your child is vaccinated, you have equipped your child and protected your child the best way that we know how from illness.
And what about when your child needs to take medication to school? Experts explain the best way to handle that. Plus, when should your child stay home from school when they're sick?
And sometimes it's just, good parent vibes.
Reading, math, and yoga will take you to a classroom that's added something new to help students emotionally.
If they use these tools, it will save them in the long run.
It's all straight ahead on this week's edition of Prescription for Life. Hello, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Monica Robbins. Now the kids are either headed back to school or are in school. It's important to keep them healthy and safe all year long. We have some tips throughout the show to get the year started off right, from prioritizing sleep and exercise to staying up to date with medical checkups. Medical professionals say one of the best ways to keep your child healthy is vaccination, to boost your child's immune system against illnesses. Your child's school likely requires proof of up-to-date immunizations, and every state has its own rules and laws for vaccine when it comes to children. There are 4 common childhood vaccines: the Tdap, MMR, polio, and varicella. They're all required for children to enroll in kindergarten in almost every state. Many states require the meningococcal or meningitis vaccine for entry into the later grades, usually 7th grade. Some states require additional vaccines, either for entry into kindergarten or for entry into later grades. We'll break it down with our expert, but first, this time of year is when we start seeing cases start to rise of flu, RSV, and COVID. Stefan Reel shows us how to keep your kids safe.
Good morning!
New school year, new friends, and new viruses.
It's just a perfect situation for viruses to spread.
Dr. Sandy Arnold with the Bonner Children's Hospital said, after a summer of fun, the close contact students experience often lead them to start getting sick once they get back to the classroom. It may start off slow, but as you see here, cases of COVID, RSV, and the flu will likely pick up over the coming months. But for now, students will likely be facing the summer surge of COVID.
COVID has settled into a pattern of a summer surge and a winter surge. So it doesn't look like we're going to have just one COVID season like we have a flu season.
Arnold said RSV cases will start to spike in October, then flu the following month. So now is one of the best times to make sure you and your child are up to date on your shots, including the upcoming COVID vaccine.
That is supposed to come out in September, and it will provide good protection, hopefully for that winter surge that we're likely to see.
Meanwhile, Arnold said to take time over the next few weeks to go over your child's health etiquette. Make sure they know to wash their hands, cough into their arm, and use hand sanitizer to help prevent the spread of any virus.
Stay away from people who are coughing and sneezing. You also don't want to be touching your eyes and your nose and your mouth all the time. These are very hard things to teach children, but it's the kind of thing that you just want to go over that.
In Memphis, I'm Stefan Reels.
Our expert is here now to help parents understand what they need to know about vaccines to keep their students safe all year long. Joining me now is Teresa Fletcher, a nurse practitioner with Akron Children's Hospital. And we are talking about back to school and why it is so important to talk to your kids and get that wellness visit before you go back to school. So why is it so important to do this?
So a lot of kids are involved in sports, and so they need that annual sports physical, and that comprehensive well visit really checks all the boxes for that sports physical. You do screenings for vision, hearing, mental health, substance use. You can screen for other risky behaviors and get your needed vaccines for school. So it's really important to go to your doctor in the summer, get all that stuff taken care of so you can participate in the things you love to do during the school year.
So you brought up the vaccine word. There's so much information out there about vaccines. What do you really want parents to understand about vaccines? Has anything really changed?
Nothing's really changed. They're generally very safe. Sometimes people get a little bit of soreness or redness of the arm, but they're safe otherwise. You can go to school the same day. We do vaccine clinics in schools all year long, and they really keep your kids healthy. If you don't want them to be exposed to things later in life, getting their vaccines now so they don't get illness from those exposures.
Any advice to parents who choose not to vaccinate their kids?
So when you choose not to vaccinate your kids, you can put your kids at risk for things such as measles, chicken pox, and then also something like HPV vaccine. You could prevent cancer by giving that vaccine. So if you don't give that vaccine, maybe later in life they could have a higher risk of getting some sort of cancer.
So you talk about well visits and nurses in school. There have been so many schools that actually cut their school nurse. How do parents navigate that? What should they do?
School nursing is so important. Typically at the beginning of each school year, your school district has forms that you have to fill out, final forms or just health information forms. They should tell you what kind of nursing service your school has available to you and any additional services that are available to you there, such as a nurse practitioner in the school or vaccines that will come into your school to give them. But it's important for you to fill that information out accurately every year so your school knows what diseases or illnesses your child might have so they can better take care of them.
So what do you want if your kid does have a chronic illness? How do you, what's the best way of making sure the school knows, the school nurse knows, or if there isn't a school nurse on premises, how do you make sure everybody's on the same page?
So I think going back to getting that annual well visit really helps you engage the school in your children's medical diseases. But what they do is they provide treatment plans for those things such as asthma, diabetes, seizures, migraines, and it really lays out step-by-step plan for the school and how to help take care of that child in school, such as an asthma inhaler before a gym class. So you prevent an asthma attack while playing gym or outside on the recess.
So many schools also are being very vigilant about allowing kids some medication. How do you navigate those instances where a child may need medication, but the school says no?
So, there's rules and laws, and school nursing has the same rules and laws. There are forms that your child's doctor has to fill out in order for those medications to be administered in school. And if those forms are filled out, that school should give those medications to your child.
So what are the biggest mistakes parents make when it comes to, making sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed? Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it is those treatment plans, specifically for asthma. Asthma is one of those, chronic illnesses that is very common. And if you don't have an asthma treatment plan at school or an asthma inhaler at school, your child could need an ambulance ride because they don't have access to that inhaler. But if they bring that to the school with the needed asthma treatment plan, that can prevent a lot of transportation to an emergency room or having to leave school early.
We're heading into cold and flu season, and of course that COVID never went away. Mm-hmm. What's your advice to parents about the COVID vaccine, the flu vaccine, everything else, the RSV vaccine, everything else that comes along with it?
Yeah, so viruses are so common, they're out there, they change every year, so it's important to get those vaccines to help keep yourself healthy. The vaccines help prevent you from getting the most common strains that are out right now. So an annual flu vaccine and COVID vaccine can definitely help with that.
And the biggest question we hear from parents all the time is when your child is sick, how do you know when it's the right time to keep them home? How do you know when, Billy can go to school.
Yeah. So when you have a fever, you should definitely stay home. That is number one. If your child has a fever, they should stay home until they're fever-free for 24 hours. And then you have those more vague complaints like bellyache. You know, if they're throwing up or having diarrhea, you should probably keep them home as well. And sometimes it's just, you know, good parent vibes to just say, you know what, I think you should try to tough it out today. And if they feel sick, they can go to their nurse's office and hopefully give a call home and see if it's appropriate for them to go home.
Coughing, sneezing, that sort of thing.
So if they, you know, can't take deep breaths and can't finish sentences without coughing or sneezing, they should probably stay home. But if it's just a minor cold, they can likely go to school.
All right. Teresa Fletcher, thank you so much. Great insight.
Thank you.
According to the CDC, it's very important for immunization programs, schools, and providers to make sure children are fully vaccinated before heading back to school. Now, doctors say it's much easier to prevent than it is to treat.
Some of these diseases can be quite severe and even deadly. So we've been fortunate in the United States to have a high level of vaccination, which has reduced, again, severe illness and death.
And when it comes to measles, doctors say it is very contagious and important to vaccinate children against it.
Children get spots, high fever. Sometimes the fever is high enough to cause brain swelling, and it can really cause a lot of damage.
Another important note for parents to keep in mind when they decide whether or not to vaccinate their children.
When children are not vaccinated and they're at higher risk for contracting illness, those are days that they will miss from school and days that you will miss from work.
Doctors say yearly flu shots are also important, but a reminder that just because you get the flu vaccine doesn't mean you won't ever get the flu. A growing number of parents are choosing not to vaccinate their children. It's the highest number in a decade. Medical experts call it a risky trend. Amelia Strahan has the story from Louisiana.
In recent years, the number of children starting school with vaccination exemptions has doubled.
As a parent, you want your kid to be in a place where they'll be safe. If the other kids in your kid's classroom are vaccinated, then that's more likely to protect your current kid.
According to data from the CDC, exemptions are still low. Around 2% of children in Louisiana will go to school this year without their vaccines. But Tulane Health Economics professor Charles Stecker says that doesn't eliminate the risk, and the numbers require some context.
The numerically small increase in non-medical exemptions in Louisiana cloaks a much larger problem.
2 new Louisiana laws went into effect on August 1st, giving parents the right to opt out of standard vaccinations, so the number of unvaccinated students can vary widely school to school. To reach herd immunity or total protection from a virus, Stecker says around 95% of children need to be vaccinated, but some schools across the state fall well below 75%. When it comes to medicine, WWL Louisiana medical correspondent Dr. Corey Hebert says the best thing parents can do to keep their little ones safe and healthy is to discuss vaccines with their doctors.
If your child is vaccinated, you have equipped your child and protected your child the best way that we know how from illness.
In New Orleans, Amelia Strahan, WWL Louisiana.
Please make sure you check the laws in your state. Now, an important part of a successful school year is sleep. Many parents will try moving their kids' bedtime, but doctors say it's about the rise time. Move the rise time back about 30 minutes a week. So if your kids are currently getting up at 9,
you want to start getting them up at 8:30. But at 8:30, you also want to do some things that help cue that rise time, if you will. So you want to get couple of minutes of outdoor sunlight exposure. You want to have breakfast. You want them to be moving around. So light and movement and food kind of teach the brain this is the new rise time we want.
Some other tips include having your kids sleep in a dark, cool room. Be strict with routine and keep them away from screens at least an hour before bedtime. Now, we know the importance of exercise for everyone. The CDC is going a step further by encouraging schools to add programs like yoga, meditation, and breathing exercises alongside traditional classes like reading and math. This is to help kids manage stress and emotions. Maya May shows us a Toledo school that added yoga to the curriculum.
Welcome to Miss Williams' classroom. After the COVID-19 pandemic forced these students into a quarantined isolation, they were told they had fallen behind socially and emotionally.
Being that we live in a chaotic world right now, there's a lot going on, and I'm noticing that a lot of kids are angry and they don't know how to express themselves or their emotions.
But Fiamma Williams, an intervention specialist at Martin Luther King Jr. Academy for Boys, says she's working to bring her students back up to speed.
So you can do that anytime you need to feel better.
Ms. Williams partnered with Karen Hover, a breathwork coach and yoga instructor for Butterfly Studios, and now yoga is a part of the class curriculum.
So I came here today to work with the students at MLK Academy to teach them how to self-soothe and to find their center, to get away from anger, whatever down emotions they're experiencing, so they could learn how to be happy.
The students say they plan to use the skills to combat fear, stress, and overstimulation.
My favorite thing about yoga is being calm and cool and collective.
It makes me feel brave.
Yoga makes me feel like I'm strong. I know how to do, like, I know how to feel better. I know how to be calm.
And their teacher, Ms. Williams, says it's a practice of slowing down, and she hopes it helps these young men get to where they want to be later in life.
I think that if they use these tools, it will save them in the long run from a lot of troubles that they may experience if they don't have it.
That'll do it for this edition of Prescription for Life. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next week with another dose. Until then, I'm Monica Robbins, wishing you and yours good health.
Thank you so much for tuning into Health Yeah. Please find me on Twitter and Instagram at Monica Robbins. Like and follow my Facebook page, Monica Robbins WKYC. Find video podcasts at Monica Robbins channel on YouTube. And please subscribe. Wishing you great health and hope to see you again soon.
Thanks for listening to Health Yeah with Monica Robbins from WKYC Studios. Subscribe now so you never miss an update. And find more on everything you heard here on WKYC.com and on the WKYC app.